the invitation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for such a great essay, great paper that summarizes really what's going on not only in Latin America as a consequence of colonialism, but also in the whole world. It's a different view, but the right view, I believe, if we really want to maintain a planet. I think that deals as well with environmental issues, which are so important this time. Well, on Venezuela, let me, and of course, tied up to your speech. Yeah, to understand Chavez, to understand Venezuela, to see what's going on, even to explain what's currently, as we're talking, happening in Venezuela, we definitely need to go not only back into history, but we need to understand what happened in terms of colonialism and how that philosophy destroyed the countries and the territories where we live, including obviously Venezuela. There are three, we'll touch upon very quickly, three important historical figures in Venezuela that basically they symbolize the elements that were brought from us when the Spaniards came to Venezuela and Latin America. We start off with, obviously, you know, the first one, great Simón Bolívar. His goal was not only to liberate Venezuela from Spanish oppression, which even at the time was pretty much a tendency that was supported by the elites, even in the Creole case in Venezuela. But Simón Bolívar was different. Not only he wanted just independence from Spain, but he wanted to create a more egalitarian society in Venezuela. And that's something that, coming from a rich background, that was something that was not very well seen among the elites in Venezuela. And his main goal, in addition to being social justice, the elimination of slavery, for example, but even also in terms of political independence, as well as Latin American unification or integration. Union, I may say. And these aspects, however, were not very well studied and touched upon later on throughout our history. This is very sad. Another important character in our history was Simón Rodríguez. Simón Rodríguez was the teacher of Simón Bolívar, or one of the teachers of Simón Bolívar. But something important about Simón Rodríguez, and also referring to your wonderful presentation, is that he believed that education had to be for everyone, and not just for a few. And something as innovative or revolutionary in the 19th century, even previously in the 18th century, was to actually bring education to indigenous population. But saying something like this at the time, and actually saying something like this even in the 20th century, was really not really well taken by many people. But he was brave enough to propose it, to actually support it, to fight for it, and actually he was depicted as a crazy man. When I was attending school as a child in Venezuela, they told us that he was just a madman running around, but they never told us why he was mad. Well, because he wanted to socialize education and actually to change the curriculum in order to make sure that not only they were getting an education, but actually what is it that they were going to learn. So that was an important aspect. The third one that I wanted to quickly touch upon is another man by the name of Ezequiel Zamora. In Venezuela, Ezequiel Zamora is an important person because of colonialism. Our lands were basically taken away. Well, they were taken away by force from the indigenous populations. But even afterwards, they were never. They were equally distributed among the people who actually worked on the lands. They were just taken by a few oligarchs and the elite, and they basically, for the most part, played with the lands, and they never worked on them, speculated on the land, for that matter. But Ezequiel Zamora, in the mid-19th century, he actually had a different view, and he thought that actually the lands needed to be for those who worked on the lands. So something very simple, but not many people understood it at the time. And he fought for it. Yeah, there was actually a civil war, among many civil wars in Venezuela in the 19th century. But his insignia, his cause, was different from others, was not just for the sake of gaining political power, as were many of the civil wars in Venezuela in the 19th century. His quest was mostly to actually redistribute land among those who were the lands. For that matter as well, when I was also growing up in Venezuela, my teachers told us in school, well, that he was a barbarous man. He was just decapitating people because he felt like it. Well, it was only until Hugo Chavez came to power that not only he revisited Venezuelan history, but he actually was able to consolidate these three elements in our history: Simón Rodríguez, Simón Bolívar, and Ezequiel Zamora, and told us that they were the roots to actually construct an actual revolutionary process in Venezuela. Without understanding without understanding the ideals of Simón Bolívar, Simón Rodríguez, and Ezequiel Zamora, we couldn't get too far. You had to actually, when say you, we Venezuelans, and actually all Latin Americans, Chavez told us many times, listen, you need to know what they stood for. First of all, you need to know what they did, because what they have been telling you in school is rubbish, and I'm a testament of that, really. That what they inundated me with in a school in Venezuela was exactly what Chavez said. It was rubbish. Chavez himself, I mean, not even through ministries of education or through some reforms or nothing like that, but he himself stood in front of television many times to actually retell the history of Venezuela. Not only through these three men, I would say these were the main important ones in terms of understanding the consequences of colonialism in Venezuela and in order to rebuild our nation. But there are many others. Just to give you an example, Castro, for example, at the beginning of the late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, he was also described as a mad president, and actually he was the one who fought and protested against the blockading of Venezuelan coast because Italy, America, France, Germany, and other countries were about to invade Venezuela for some lack of payments or some debts that had not been paid and so on, when in reality Cipriano Castro what really wanted was to create an actual sovereign country free of debt. And by the way, immediately afterwards, his replacement, Juan Vicente Gomez, was fully open to all kinds of investment at the time when oil was discovered in Venezuela. It's quite a coincidence that these events happened at the moment, at the time, and oil happened to be quite important for the Venezuelan economy and for Venezuelan dependency, unfortunately, to the rest of the world. And like Cipriano Castro, and there were many others. But basically Chavez, and I think one of the aspects that is important about Chavez was how he was able to retell Venezuelan history, how he was able to explain to us, to everyone, no matter what the education level was, people understood what he meant and how history was important as a means to preserve whatever gains were to be gained in the near future in the during the Bolivarian Revolution. And I think that's very important to say. To an extent, even that before Chavez died, and Luis Castro's film shows this as well, he also foresees what's going to happen. This, what we're seeing in Venezuela, is really not much of a surprise to any of us, or to most of us. Chavez himself told us, as I said, even when he was already diagnosed with cancer, that elements from the right wing worldwide were going to simply attack all the progress and all the achievements of the Bolivarian Revolution. It's simply, as you mentioned, their interests just collide with the social interests of the majority of the population in Venezuela, and they will not stop until they see our revolution destroyed. That's something that we need to understand. Chavez told us, if we revise our history, we realize that that's the case, and it will continue to be the case. Is how to best prepare for that, how to best understand that, and therefore act on it. In education, as you also mentioned, is key, is fundamental to tackle this series of problems. Education in Venezuela, obviously in Latin America, which are the epicenters of what we're talking about, but also education here, also education in the whole of the South. People like you, for example, who give Venezuelan people so much support and solidarity. The more educated you are, the more you learn, the more you can support us, and vice versa. Venezuela can also help people, progressive people like you in these parts of the world. So it's definitely a system that works on both sides for the benefit of humanity. So this is not new. In fact, Chavez himself was a victim of what we're seeing now. In 2002, we also watched that in Castro's documentary just now, Luis' documentary, how these vicious right-wing plotters decided to simply get rid of President Hugo Chavez in 2002, supported, and now it's very open. You can find WikiLeaks, you can find in many books and documents, open documents from the United States. Eva Bollinger's research shows how America was fully involved in the 2002 coup d'etat against President Hugo Chavez, and how even at the time they made it look as if the government was the one attacking on people, was the one performing abuses of human rights against protesters, similar to what we're seeing right now. And we are now know that that's not the case. But that was not the only time. In ending of 2002, beginning of 2003, the same forces, immediately after the coup d'etat, they decided to simply stop certain businesses in Venezuela in order to sabotage the economy, so they could destroy the economy and topple the government and so on. And they were so sure they were going to do it because you know what they said? They said, look, we are the only ones who know how to do things in Venezuela. That's how conceited the right wing normally tends to be. They really look down on working class people. They don't think that we are capable of learning or of doing things or of achieving things. And they were so sure that some of them even left the country just to wait for that to happen in order to return. That never happened. Venezuela was able to actually overcome this business lockout, and it was difficult. In fact, the economy, Venezuelan economy at the time, was badly hit because of that incident. But nevertheless, we recovered and nothing happened, and we continue on. And they continue on as well. They carry on sabotaging and trying to destroy what we had achieved. That was in 2002, 2003. In 2004, there was a recall referendum, which, by the way, there was not even a need to do it because they did not collect enough signatures. According to the Constitution, you need to collect a certain number of signatures in order to carry on a recall referendum against any elected politician. And even though they cried that, look, we do have the signatures, they never had them, but Chavez said, okay, let's go and let's run and see what happens and see who wins. Chavez won, fair and square, and they said it was fraud. And as a means to protest that, they simply decided to do exactly what they're doing now, blocking streets, setting things on fire, throwing Molotov cocktails to government buildings and so on. And that only lasted 9 people died, by the way. That's the sad. The problem is that those mistakes happen to be very expensive and very sad. It's not just adventures on their behalf, but also they have critical consequences that human lives. I mean, that's something that you cannot ever recover. I can continue on. In 2005, they decided to boycott legislative elections. They decided not to run. That was a big mistake on their behalf, and so on and so forth. And we go all the way to 2012, for example. I remember that the date quite well because I was here during the Olympic Games. All of a sudden, there was a major, huge explosion in one oil refinery in Venezuela. And well, what did the media say? What people said? Well, that's mismanagement. You see, those socialists, they don't know how to do anything. And if we only wrote that, we knew how to do it because we have the technicians and so on. And it was sad also. It was very, dangerous, and people died as well. Again, we go to dead people in this circumstance. What happened in the investigation that took place 1 year after? Well, the investigation began then, but the results were provided about a year afterwards. Well, it was actually plotted by the right wing in order to sabotage the economy, in order to make the government look incompetent. And media didn't say anything. They were very quick to say that there was an explosion because of incompetence by the government, but they never said it was actually plotted. I wonder if it would have been the other way around. The whole world would have been crying that the Venezuelan government was sabotaging something. That obviously we would never do something like that. But I'm just giving you that imaginary, fictional scenario. And like that, they have been sabotaging the electric system, services, etc.